Hold on tight, it's time for another heart-pounding episode of Wham Bam Dashcam, featuring the most shocking wrecks, intense close calls, and nail-biting moments you won't find anywhere else. Today's first video comes to us from a DoorDash driver who was on his way through a construction zone when the driver of an oncoming garbage truck failed to yield before turning across our submitter's lane.
A crash has been detected.
Even though our submitter stood on the brake pedal and held down his horn, he was going 40 miles per hour, and there was no way he could avoid hitting the garbage truck that should have never been in front of him. Our submitter told us the garbage truck driver said he'd thought the road ahead of him was closed, so he'd followed the car ahead of him through the flashing yellow light. Sadly, his Honda Insight was totaled. Even worse, the fast food he was delivering went flying. I'm guessing he didn't get a tip for this delivery. Thankfully, he wasn't seriously injured, and he's planning to use the insurance settlement to upgrade to a Tesla Model 3. Sweet! This submitter had his own encounter with the Honda driver when they turned in front of his Genesis G70. Our submitter was traveling at around 50 miles per hour when the Honda Civic driver made a right on red, illegal in this case because traffic wasn't clear and because she hadn't stopped before making the right turn. Oh, and she had turned into the far lane, which was also illegal. If she'd turned into the correct lane, our submitter could have continued right past her, which is what he'd expected to happen. Both vehicles had to be towed away, and fixing our submitter's Genesis cost $12,000 US. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Suzanne was driving when she watched an SUV driver cut across the street to make a left turn at a spot where they aren't allowed, and a special island has been put in place specifically to stop drivers from doing that. Suzanne wasn't the only one who noticed the turning Toyota. A Thunderbolt police officer also spotted the SUV and quickly pulled it over for some instant justice, which I bet took longer than using a legal route would have. Suzanne wanted to thank her son Spencer, who introduced her family to our videos. Now they watch the Wham Bam channels together every night before bed. William's Toyota Venza was parked when his dashcam captured a hit-and-run collision. William sent us a news story about this incident, which said that the driver fled from the police, crashed into a cop car, then fled on foot and was located by a canine officer half an hour later. He was charged with a myriad of offenses, including DUI. William gave a copy of his dashcam footage to the officer who responded to the collision scene, and he was grateful for the video evidence. Susie was on her way home from work, and she was in the left lane in preparation for an upcoming left turn. The driver of a pickup truck decided she was going too slow and raced around her. She told us this area is a well-known speed trap, but evidently that wasn't well known to the pickup driver. He was quickly pulled over, and Susie couldn't resist the temptation to drive past the traffic stop to witness instant justice. Susie said she and her husband bought dashcams for both their vehicles, as well as for her husband's work truck. Speaking of dashcams, it's time to give away a couple of them. In episode 112 a few weeks ago, we gave you a chance to win one of two VIOFO A229 Pro dashcams, and it's time to announce the winners. First up is Michael, who will be putting his in a 2005 Toyota Prius. Next is Kim, who will be putting his in a 2011 BMW Z4. Congratulations! If you didn't win, remember that you can use our discount codes to save when you order a VIOFO dashcam. Just check the description. Everyone's a winner! This submitter is a trucker, in case you couldn't tell, who was driving in Louisiana when another trucker decided the space our submitter was leaving ahead of him was right where he wanted to be. What the other trucker didn't realize was that a fire truck had stopped traffic ahead, and after the trucker hit the brakes on the wet pavement, he had to swerve into the median to avoid rear-ending a pickup truck. Okay, that close call was too close. Our submitter told us the other trucker ended up stuck in the mud while everyone else continued with their day. Yikes! Cameron watched a double rear-end collision when a driver from the right slammed into a car, pushing it into the back of a stopped SUV. Even though the light was green, traffic ahead had stopped, and the Ford Explorer driver had also stopped to avoid ending up stuck in the intersection and possibly blocking cross traffic if the light changed. Another driver learned the hard way why you should watch the space ahead of you rather than fixating on the traffic light itself. Cameron gave his business cards to the victims so they could reach out for his dashcam footage. Adam was waiting at an intersection notorious for semi-trucks getting stuck while turning. In fact, there's even a sign instructing drivers of trucks over 25 feet long not to turn, but they still do, as we're about to see. Adam told us the police like to camp out near the intersection to catch the troublemakers. And that's exactly what happened after a trucker forced Adam to back up to avoid being hit by his trailer. Thankfully, this trucker didn't manage to hit anything or anyone before the officer pulled him over for some instant justice. This emitter had just dropped her son off at school when another driver started tailgating her in a school zone. When he tried to pass her over double yellow lines, she sped up and prevented his dangerous overtake. Moments later, he tried to pass her again in the oncoming lane, but when she swerved to block him from speeding in a school zone, he lost control and left the road before colliding with a cluster of trees. The Nissan was finally stopped by a chain-link fence while our submitter continued on. When she came back the other way 20 minutes later, the car was gone, but she told us the front bumper cover had been left behind. I can't believe this has to be said, but never speed in a school zone. If you do, you deserve everything that happens to you as a result. Eric was driving down a Pennsylvania highway when an impatient driver in the travel lane nearly sideswiped his Dodge Durango. Thankfully, Eric was paying attention and was able to swerve into the inside shoulder to avoid being hit by the oblivious driver. This emitter was entering a parking lot when he witnessed a Honda driver doing what Honda drivers do best.
Jump in! Honda bumped! Honda bumped!
Not only did the Civic driver back into a parked car, he then left the scene, making this a hit and run. Based on the damage to the side of the Civic, I'm pretty sure this wasn't his first Honda bump either. Of course, Hondas are notoriously easy cars to steal, so maybe this driver had a deeper reason for avoiding responsibility for the collision. Either way, hopefully this video will find its way to the owner of the Chevy. Ben was making a legal right turn on a green light when he encountered a Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive! That Tesla man can't drive!
The driver of the white Model Y made an illegal U-turn in front of Ben, failing to yield and forcing Ben to slam on the brakes to avoid T-boning them. He told us he laid on his horn until he literally blew a fuse and it stopped honking. Carla and her husband were driving when they noticed a Kia Soul driver make a right turn across a lane. Sadly for them, there was a car in that lane, and they pit maneuvered themselves off it. The Kia Soul went spinning off the road into a stop sign while the driver of the other car was able to maintain control and pull over. Carla stopped and thankfully nobody was injured. Carla provided both drivers with copies of her dashcam footage. She wanted to shout out her husband Davis as well as her sister Brittany, who watches our videos with her. Ben was on his way home from work in his Subaru Outback Bluey when the utility truck ahead of him had something suddenly fly out of it, and Ben had to swerve around it at 80 miles per hour. Ben told us he flashed his lights and tried to get the driver's attention, but he ignored Ben and just kept driving. As far as he knows, the guy never went back to get the item, whatever it was. Shawn watched a Mazda come too fast through a left turn before ricocheting off a guardrail. After witnessing the collision, Shawn stopped and went back to see if he could help. Police and paramedics responded quickly, and Shawn said they had to smash a window to remove the driver from the SUV. Phil was towing a trailer with his Ford F-150 when the driver of a dually pickup truck sped past him before a merge, forcing Phil to merge behind him. Phil didn't appreciate this, and he admits he made a rude gesture to the other driver. This prompted the other driver to stop and get out of his truck to confront Phil. And that's how we know that the purpose of the extra wheels on that truck is to make up for other inadequacies the driver suffers from. You know, like self-control, emotional stability, basic human decency, adult maturity. I could go on. Anyway, Phil evidently had more intelligence than the other guy and used it to go around him rather than fighting it out. He told us the dually driver did try to catch up to him again later, but he refused to react and they eventually parted ways. Leah had just left a restaurant when another driver turned onto the road in front of her. Even though Leah stood on the brake pedal, she couldn't avoid colliding with the other sedan. Thankfully, a sheriff's deputy was right behind the other driver, and he stopped and helped them with everything. Since Leah is only 19 years old and this was her first collision, she was grateful for his assistance. She told us she was hoping her first Wham Bam submission wouldn't be a collision she was involved in, but hey, at least I'm on Wham Bam now. See, there is a silver lining. Thanks, Leah. Kyle had a BMW driver turn in front of him, but thankfully, his Hyundai Elantra's brakes were enough to save him from a T-bone collision. Kyle honked a few extra times for good measure before continuing. He told us that Wham Bam Dashcam was his main inspiration for getting a dashcam. Thanks, Kyle. We're glad you're satisfied. Raouf watched the driver of a hatchback misapply their accelerator pedal, sending their car flying backward into a pole. Raouf told us the elderly driver hadn't been feeling well before this happened. Thankfully, he wasn't injured. Raouf wanted us to remind our viewers not to drive if you're feeling sick. Morpheus was driving through Yellowstone National Park when traffic slowed down for some jaywalkers. Do you know what the buffalo said when his kid left Europe to live in America? Bye, son. Feel free to repeat that dad joke to everyone you know. Just tell them you heard it on Wham Bam Dashcam. Check out this video for more garbage truck shenanigans, or watch this one if you just want more dad jokes. I don't even know which episode that is, but we have dad jokes in pretty much all of them, so just go check it out.
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.